I want to go over two things with you here. And these are changes that we have made to AnyDate and the universal delay timer, both of which we have already gone over previously. And when we did, we talked about this idea of time zones and being able to convert time zones and what a pain that is. Now, I know that Infusionsoft recently released their new email builder, which allows you to schedule a broadcast at a certain date and time based on local time zone, which is great, but the campaign builder still does not support time zone. Nor does a lot of other things. So that's the problem that we are trying to solve. So I think the best way to do this is to probably start in the campaign, and then I'm going to come back to our no, I'm not. I'm going to do it this way. I want to address it here in the quick start guide rather than showing it to you in the campaign. I will bring this campaign up though, because you can see the posts just as easily in the quick start guide, okay, as you can in the oh, you know, and the other thing I'm going to do tonight, just to give you a sneak peek, we've added, beyond time zone support, we've added a couple of other new features to Universal Delay Timer since we last went over it. So as long as we're in there, I'm going to talk to you about those too, which is the ability to delete a timer that you've set. So, okay, so AnyDate, we're going to start with AnyDate, any format, anywhere. And I'm going to make this bigger, like this, so you guys can see my screen, hopefully. Okay, so this is what we went over last time, right? You'll recall that what AnyDate does is it takes a date and or a time and it formats it in any format you want. It can make an adjustment to it, and then it saves it to a field, and it can save it using our advanced notation to any sort of a field. Now, the things that you should know or remember about AnyDate is that the date parameter does not necessarily have to be a date or a date time field in Infusionsoft. It can be. It could also be, you can also merge in a text field, or you can merge in a constant, like, I hate that. I should really turn that off for these webinars. Get off there. A constant like what I've got here in this snippet on your screen, right? That's just me putting in a date, or any combination thereof, so long as when Infusion or when it goes to resolve it, it can resolve to a recognizable date, right? So in this case, I've got a date of 8/21/2014, 4 o'clock in the morning EST. Okay, and I'm asking it to add 3 days to that, format it, and stick it in a custom field in the contact record. Okay. We also showed you the last time we went over this that you could use the word today. You can use the word note as well. Now, something that we have done is we have added these time zone codes, and I'm going to show you that here. I'm going to skip past format. I'm going to skip past save to because we've already done that. Contact ID. Okay, now this is interesting. You know what? I am going to have to do this side by side because you're going to need to look at this in here. So I'm going to do it like this. Hang on. This is going to be better. This I got to make smaller so you can see it. And then I'm going to go here, and I'm going to go, oops, heck, wrong one, hang on, totally wrong one. Go to test, Pocket Developer, this one. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about as I do it. Okay. Pocket Developer is, okay, any date is right here. And we're going to use this one. Okay. Now, so this is where the stuff that we've added, okay? So before we had a date parameter and we had a time parameter. Now we have a time zone parameter and a convert to time zone parameter. And here's how it works. You might remember previously that these are all optional, okay? So if, as I had here, I only have date, okay? And it's going to use that date, and if there is a time, that time, and if there is a time zone, that time zone, it's going to format it or adjust it, format it, and save it in the field. As I add, these are sort of cascading. I think Carlos calls them order of preference, I think, or order of something. Anyway, so date, as you go down in specificity, it takes order of precedence. There we go. It takes precedence over the one above it. So time takes precedence over date. Time zone takes precedence over both. So for example, let's just imagine here that I had, now these are US time zones right here, and I'm going to talk about a little time zone problem we've got anyway here in a minute. So, but that we have to solve and get your input on how we're planning to solve it. But these are US time zones, Mountain, Pacific, Central, okay? Now, so what I'm saying is here, this is weird, right? But I'm saying, and these could be different, totally different fields, completely. And so, in fact, they might also be different time zones. So if I had, if I only had date, it would take the first login date, and it would assume that I meant Mountain Standard Time. If I didn't have anything in any of these, it would always assume Eastern Time, which is the Infusionsoft server, right? But because I have a date here, if these two didn't exist, it would assume Mountain Time. But because I have a date here, imagine time zone didn't exist, it's going to say, all right, I'm going to pull your date from this field. I'm going to pull your time from this field. These could be different. And I'm going to ignore, because of order of precedence, this, and I'm going to assume that you want the time to be Pacific Standard Time. So it ignores this because now we got time, all right? But then when we added this specific time zone field, because this might be hard-coded in a date field and you actually don't want it to be that time zone, we allow you to actually specify time zone and say, nope, it's not either one of these actually. I want you to say this date, this time is Central Time, Central Standard Time Zone. I want you to convert it to Eastern Time. I want you to format it like this, and then I want you to add 2 hours to it and stash it in a field so that I can use it later as a merge field. Okay, so with the idea being, so let's think about use cases for a minute. The most obvious ones to me are anytime we're working with appointments or events, really, where the attendees might be spread over multiple time zones. You might want to take the date of this webinar and be able to merge in the multiple time zones, so Thursday at 5:12 p.m. Eastern Time, Friday, whatever it is for you guys, 12 a.m. or whatever for Australian time, and to be able to merge those in. That's one possibility. Another is that gosh, I live in the mountains, or I live Mountain Standard Time, or I live in Australia, And as I make these adjustments, and store all these dates, I want them to all be in my local time. Or I want to be able to go from my local time, and I'm making stuff up, but my local time in Australia to local time in New Zealand or what have you. I don't, I mean, I can think of a lot of places where I might want to convert and store in a local time zone. So with that as a backdrop for this, okay, I'm going to get to universal delay timer in a minute, but this is just any date and the ability to format and store so that you can merge them or use them elsewhere. What is this useful to you guys as having the biggest time zone problem? How would you use it? How would you change it? Tell me more about this. Is it not useful? Yep, Ozzy, you are on mute. That's funny. It says you're not on mute, but I can't hear you. That's weird. Can you unmute? It says you are unmuted. I'm going to mute you and then unmute you again. Unmute. You're unmuted. Cannot hear you though. You know what you can try? Oh, he just did. There you are. Ozzy, are you there? Huh. Still can't hear you. You might have just tried this. What I generally do is switch to telephone and then switch it back to mic and speakers. And most of the time it will reset it. Chetan, that's because nobody else has said anything yet. We can't hear anybody else but me either. Ozzy is... Kirsten, you're not on mute. Can you say something?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can. Okay. So, you're okay. Ozzy... Okay, so he's going to call in on the phone. Ramona, you're not on mute.
Right, I just took myself off. Do you have an unmute?
Yep.
All?
Okay.
Do you have an unmute all button?
I do.
Try that.
Muted.
Okay.
Unmuted.
Muted all. Yeah, see, because I think it might be specific to his. Mo, are you there?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can. So it's just Ozzy. So, while Ozzy is trying to get back in, I think he's going to call in on the phone. Any ideas on how you might use this?
Yeah, for us at Guardian Strata, we normally, because we've got the time delays in American times, we normally set it back 17 hours and then try to adjust it to a daytime email in Australia. So we could definitely use it to make sure that we just put it in the right time so we can send it out in Australian time.
Okay. Yeah, and that's going to be definitely more useful when we get to the universal delay timer, and you'll see it's almost this exact same, all these same parameters, basically, except it's not saving it, anywhere. It's actually using it to fire a goal. So, so I think that's going to be useful too. Ozzy, are you there? Nope. So I'm reading his comment, which I really want to understand. It says, can you record this info globally rather than have to use the post over and over again? And you really can't. Mm-hmm. So while he's doing that, to me, one of the most logical things here that makes this sort of pretty much dynamic is this. If you look in my app, somewhere or another in here, I've got a custom field stored called time zone, and depending on, you can collect this, I guess, in a lot of different ways. One way would be to automate it, so that when people do things on your site, it automatically uses like GeoIP to grab the time zone that they're in. That's not ideal in some ways, mainly because they may be someplace other than their home time zone. But a logical way, of course, is like every other thing we do is just to ask them for it. So, but if I have time zone here, and so if I know Nessa lives in Pacific time or Pacific Standard Time, and I'm going to talk about some of the issues with these codes here that we're trying to solve in a second. But so if I save this time zone, custom time zone field as PST for Nessa or Arizona or whatever she is, and then here I make this a merge field like this, contact dot underscore, I think this is what it is, time zone, right? So now what happens is this is imagine this is like webinar date. And this is also webinar date. And let's just imagine that we'll just take these off for a second like this, and that the webinar is Eastern time because I think we're in EDT right now, not EST, but anyway. And so here's my webinar date. Oops. And this is also my webinar date, or let's make this even webinar time, a different field, okay? And so, and then I'm saying that, well, this is in Eastern time, right? But what I want to do is when I store this in your record, I'm going to call this human date, like that. Oh, yeah, right? So now when I store this in your record, it's always going to store and merge into your emails in your time zone, whatever you are. So I don't have to worry about saying this is Eastern time, if it's 5 o'clock if you're Eastern time, 4 o'clock, Central time, whatever. It's just always going to be personalized to your time zone. I mean, that's one of the more obvious use cases for me. Ozzy, what have you got?
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay, all right, so this is at a contact record, right?
Yes, but it could be in any record.
Correct, okay, so this is the sort of thing, just like off the top of my head, that for us, because we reuse it, like everything that we do within Infusionsoft that's to do with delay timers. Well, in fact, anything to do with, a date. It's not just appointments. It's basically anything that you build that's got a delay timer and campaign builder would be applicable. Okay, so the point I was trying to make through the chat is that the best thing for us would be that we could set this once, the relationship, perhaps in a different record or something like that, so that we do it once and we can reuse it many, many, many times, because it's always going to be the same. We're always going to add, 15 or 16 hours to whatever time zone we're relating it to.
Well, why would you have to do that? Because if you're...
Okay.
So... I know that, you're 15, 16 hours from Eastern time, right?
Mm-hmm.
But let's just go, so let me do this. Let me leave any date for a second, because that's about putting it in a field. And let's go here to the universal delay timer. And now, because unfortunately, they don't allow you to put campaign fields in a post. If they did, it would be brilliant, because you could just hard code 17 hours in the campaign field and merge that in, but you can't, right? So, but I'm not positive, but I want to make sure I understand how you're using it, and then, and make sure we're going to solve the problem for you. So, okay, so here's the new version of the universal delay timer, and so it's called schedule call. This one's schedule call, okay, and it in this one, because it's hosted by us, you have to give your app name. That's required. You give your goal, which is an API goal that it's going to trigger, right? A unique name. And let me just go back to this for a second. So here's the universal delay timer test, and here, right? And so what it's going to do is it's going to delay until whenever it hits its its date and its time, and then it's going to call this. It's going to trigger this goal, and then anything that comes after it, right? Your waking action, your email, your whatever, then follows that goal. Okay. So back to this. So you've got your goal name, your call name, and then we have a date. Now, in this case, we're saying last day of the month, last day of last month. But this could also be, any date, right? So it could be a work order due date. How about that? Okay. So we're gonna do opportunity dot due date, okay? And then we're going to say time, I don't know, time doesn't really matter, but okay, we'll say 11 a.m. And then we're going to say for a minute, for lack of something better, EDTA for Australian time. I don't think that's quite right, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
And then it's going to adjust this minus 3 days before the due date. And it's going to, I'll tell you about these two later. But, okay, so now what's going to happen is, regardless of what time it is in the States, if you put, Thursday, Friday, October 24th, 11 a.m. Eastern Australian time, and then you adjust minus 3 days from that, then on, 3 days ago at 11 a.m., this would fire.
Okay, got it.
Does that solve the problem?
Then that would work. Yes, because at the moment we're having to, it will, because that way when we configure something, we say in Australian time when we want to run it, without having to do any conversion.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You don't have to do plus or minus calculation.
Nope.
It's at 11 o'clock Australian time, done. And the only thing we've got to remember is that we've got to be specific to, whatever that variable is, EDTA equivalent.
Right. Exactly. Which is the next thing I want to talk to you guys about. But assuming that so you could run everything off of this, right? Now you wouldn't need any of their timers.
So say that again.
You could run, this would replace every single timer in
correct. That's exactly right. Correct. That's correct.
Because let's look now.
Yes, because the ones within the campaign builder at the moment, we have to do a manual conversion to make it run at the time that we want. Correct.
Right. So here's the delay timer. I'm just trying to understand it, right? So this is hard-coded as EST. So that's obviously not very useful. Same. Okay. So by so and then this is a field timer. Now this one, well, nope, this one couldn't either, because even if I set the contact field, this is just the date, not the time, so that doesn't help. Okay, so these are all pretty. Okay, so those don't help you guys. Now,
Given it's Modi, I've just got a question in regards to the time zone code, the putting in EDTA. If we do put in the Australian one, does it pick up that it's an Australian time zone? What if another country has the exact same recall?
I'm so glad you brought that up. That is the exact problem we are struggling with. So
what was that again? Because I didn't hear that properly.
Yeah, so I'll repeat it. Mo, you're absolutely right. So your time zones are exactly the same as ours, as it turns out, and same with other countries as well. We all have like Eastern Daylight Time or Eastern Standard Time, for example. So how do you tell it whether I'm talking about Eastern Standard Time in the States or Eastern Standard Time in Australia or in, some other country? Africa, which also has it, and weird Caribbean countries too. So this is the thing that I wanted to ask your opinion about, because.
All right, I've got a thought on that.
Please.
Okay. Why don't you just add either a prefix or a suffix that relates to the country identifier?
Yep. That's sort of what I just did here. Right, EDTA for Australia. Now here's another thought, or similar. It's the same but similar thought, right? So what we were thinking is this: we were thinking that really 99% of Infusionsoft users, or even not users, but who Infusionsoft users probably, trigger to. I mean, the time zones are probably North and South America, Europe, maybe as far east as probably Germany-ish, right? And then all of Australia, New Zealand, all that whole area, right? So what if we just said, rather than, because the code equivalents of those are really intimidating. In fact, I get intimidated even looking at them. So what we thought is,
then we would have no hope.
So why don't we just come up with our own codes, just like this? So ET would be Eastern Time in the States. CT would be Central Time in the States, but ETA would be Eastern Time Australia, CTA Central Time Australia, and then we'd just create the 15 or so codes that are our codes. Uh-oh. Why are you guys calling me? They're just killing me. My phone just never stops ringing anymore. Hang on. Let me get rid of these guys. Go away. Yeah, so we could just come up with our very own 20 or so time zone codes, and that were, you know, just proprietary to our plugins, and say these are them. Use them, and then if somebody needed one that we hadn't come up with yet, they could just ask us to add it, and we could add it. Would that do it?
Yep. Would that be a date and time?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or is it just time that's the issue?
Well, date and time are really one thing, even though we sometimes break them out, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can't say, you know, you can't really say 11 o'clock ETA without knowing what date, because if you cross the date line, it doesn't work, right?
Yeah, that's right. No, that's fine. Yeah, I understand.
So in theory, it's just whatever it is, probably 15 codes that we would just create and name and say, okay, you guys, we're going to use these 15.
Yeah.
And
that would work, because then we would just simply say, this is the date and time that we wanted it to go out, and all we've got to remember is what the code is, which will be the same every single time.
Yeah.
I wouldn't just put an A though, Kim. I'd just put like
AU?
the normal country code, you know, USD, AUS, NZ. You know, it's like the currency or country codes are well.
Oh yeah, I like that. I like that. So, like, I mean, I can look them up, but you guys probably know them by heart. What in your area? What are the? How many time zones are there, and what are they?
There's Eastern. Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
There's EST, and then there's DT for daylight savings time. Or it might be EDST, sorry. And then I don't know what the code for the Western Australia is.
Okay, so there's
the West.
Okay, East, West.
There's Adelaide as well.
Adelaide has their own code, and then what about New Zealand? Do you know?
I think they have one. New Zealand, I think, has one. Yeah.
And then is anyone? I hate to even say this, but is anyone else relevant over there? If I got all of Australia and New Zealand, does anybody else matter?
Well, really, New Zealand's part of Australia anyway, really.
Oh.
No. So there's sort of 4 time zones, I suppose, in Australia, which we can define, yeah.
Okay. Because, so what we were thinking is we're not going to say S or T or D. We're going to say like ET, because we can make the script take care of figuring out whether we're S or D right now, right? So this would be like ET US, and this would be ET AU, and then it would say, oh, ET US right now is on standard time, but, you know, in 3 weeks we'll be on daylight savings time, and it'll just know that automatically. And that way, because that's actually built into databases that are out there kept by, you know, who knows who. But so there's no reason for us to make because if we did that time zone thing that I showed you, where we just say what time zone are you in, wouldn't work, because it would change twice a year, you know.
Yeah.
So we want to come up with a universal time zone that it knows based on the date whether, you know, what the adjustment is. Whether it's daylight or standard. Make sense?
Well, yep, it does. I like the example that you got on there on the screen right now. It's very simple.
Cool. Okay.
No, do you agree? No?
Yeah, for sure. But one question: when you say we need to create the codes, where are we actually creating these codes, or where are they stored? So when we put them into the HTTP, it pulls the information from there.
No, you're not creating them. We are. So in other words, you'll go to our documentation here, and under time zone, we'll list our 20 or so codes that we've created, and that it recognizes.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and then as people need more codes, because maybe we don't think there's anybody in Africa, but someone says, hey, I need, Egypt. Okay, well, we'll add a time zone for Egypt. I mean, it'd be easy to do then, that way. And then we would just support the however many codes we needed to support kind of the English-speaking Infusionsoft base. Yeah? So
Yep.
basically, it seems like to me every single person in Australia, or for that matter, Europe, would want and need this plugin. Is that true?
That's right. Because if you look on the boards, Kim, I think you're part of most boards.
Mm-hmm.
Even with this broadcast thing, you saw the reaction when even the email broadcast enhancement was able to be done, a little bit differently to before by time zones.
Mm-hmm.
So the same, it comes up nearly every user group that I've been involved in terms of our Sydney one, which has probably got the best users in Australia of Infusionsoft. There's Linda Greening, who has been using Infusionsoft for quite a long time. Richard Musty, Christy. They're all really the high-end users, and they all say the same thing.
Mm-hmm. But
and even for ourselves, we don't want to have to think about the conversion all the time. It just does our head in half the time. It's hard enough to get the campaign working like you want without having to figure out all the dates as well.
Yeah, and then as soon as the time changes, then they're wrong. Both, because
right.
I'm sure your daylight savings time is probably different than ours, right? I'm sure they don't change on the same day.
No, they don't. That's exactly right.
Okay, so even, see, I live on the East Coast, so for me, I'm in Eastern time, and so I'm always, it's hard for, but the more I put my head around it, I think, well, even if I'm in Pacific time, if I'm in California, it still stinks to have to add and subtract 3 hours, really. I mean, and before you could just make this Eastern time plus 17 hours and hard code the adjustment, but now I think this is better. I think this would be way better to put this time zone in.
So even in terms of your example when you started off the call, in terms of like appointments, if you're in one of the things that and I saw on your screen that you got World Time Buddy or something like that up there.
Yep.
Like I've had to do, for example, Zendesk training over the last couple of weeks because we're pretty well nearly ready to go live with it. And I've had to get trained up at midnight my time because that's when they run the courses. Now, they said, it's this course runs at 9 a.m. CT time and 10 a.m. this other time. And to be quite honest, I didn't freaking know what the hell was going on. I had to sort of like click on the link to find out what date, what time it actually meant. So in the invitation for appointments, by using these codes, you can actually list, without having to do World Time Buddy or anything like that, you can actually list, relative to the time you're scheduling, you can list the other times on the email notification rather than people having to work it out manually.
Exactly. And what do you think that's going to do for conversion? Like, if I know when it is and I get things in my time zone instead of, those bloody Americans always putting stuff in their own time zone. It's like, every email comes to me in my time zone, specifically my time zone, and you over in Adelaide, you get it in your time zone. And you can't, it looks like it was written to you knowing where you were in the world. To me, I think that's like pretty huge, personally.
It is, because we come across that problem all the time. The confusion around, when does this, Yep.
2 days until Keikavek moves back by 1 hour. It's like, but this is like, right? See, this is different for everybody all the time.
Oh God, there you go. And at the moment,
Like, how do you,
you've got that up there because it's necessary for you to have it, right?
correct? Because
You
I
don't
like I
need
talk
that
to
anymore.
people.
Mhm.
I talk to people. Well, but I talk to people and schedule appointments
Oh,
with people
fair enough. Yeah.
all
Yeah.
the time, and so this is my way
Yeah.
of making. I can't live without World Time Buddy, because it just doesn't work. Even my parents are in Scottsdale, and they flip just like freaking Infusionsoft. I never know whether they're 3 or 4 behind me. Anyway, so this is good. All right, so this is good feedback. It does indeed solve the problem that we wanted to solve. Right. And you think these codes would be, since you only have 4 or 5 of them, and you can look them up, would be easy enough? People would be okay with that?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. I've got a couple of my folks, Ramona and Kirsten and Carlos is on. Monica's not. So, but Kirsten and Ramona, you guys are working with all kinds of clients as well. What do you think in the U.S. this is as useful or not as useful? Like, would you, when you're creating campaigns, would you use it to convert time zones? Don't forget, you have to unmute yourself.
I'm not sure if I would or not. I don't even think I think about it. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. So really, for you, even though you're in Phoenix, Scottsdale, it's just easy enough for you to do that math in your head?
Yeah, and that's just because everybody I work with is in Eastern. But for other people, it may be useful because they may, they might be challenged by that, or they might have even people in Central. Like if I had a 3rd time zone in, then yeah, it would be useful because I can't keep that stuff that straight.
Well,
I think
if you focus. Sorry, go ahead.
no, I mean I'm in Eastern, so I know that all the applications I use default to Eastern. I'm just wondering what if you send out an email, blast and people are in, I guess if people are in Central or Pacific, it would help them. But I just know that all the MailChimp defaults to Eastern and, everybody, most of them default to Eastern. So I think we've gotten used to it, but I think it would help certain people.
Yeah, I think, again, for us, it's just the 1-2 hours are probably not that big of a deal. Although I still like the idea of being able to personalize an email with a date and a time in your time zone. But nonetheless, I think, it's when you start switching, 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, and then for those guys, 15, 18 hours and in a different day, now it becomes pretty meaningful. So, all right,
yeah,
good feedback.
I don't have anything that complicated.
Okay. Okay. See, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I think even in the US, if you're like an out-and-out marketer, where the timing of the email going into an inbox is critical, then a couple of hours might matter.
Oh, right. So if you've done testing, this is an interesting point, right? If you've done testing to say what time of day, what day and time of day do I get the most opens? Well, if I can only send at a single time every day, right, and I can't differentiate by time zone, then 1/4 of my emails presumably are going at the wrong time, no matter how much testing I do.
Well, yeah, and the case in point, the only reason I bring it up is because I was talking. It's not related to email, but it's in principle the same thing. one of the guys that is doing some work on Facebook advertising said that he only shows his ads, for example, at between 2 and 4 o'clock in the morning for mums, because he's selling baby stuff, because that's when they're awake during the night breastfeeding. All right, for example. So in his case, it's the only time that he should be advertising, because that every other time during the day, they're looking after the kid in a different way, whereas they're feeding and they're sort of surfing the net at the same time. But there's an example of the timing, if it's out by a couple of hours, is actually like super critical to conversion.
That is so interesting.
Can I ask you?
Yeah.
If you're sending a broadcast, would you send it out in batches according to the time zones?
Well, see, Infusionsoft has added now that time zone thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I just saw it.
Yeah, I haven't even looked at it.
Often, not that much, but I just saw that.
So, I mean, to me, okay, so here's our new deal. Oh, so I have to switch. But so what ends up happening is you can now say, I want to send a broadcast at 8 a.m. Australian time, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, you're right. I mean, this doesn't affect us, but basically we don't affect this, I should say. However, I don't even know how to get to this next. It's not going to let me, I'm sure. If you were collecting time zones and you knew the time zones, then you could, I guess, like send 4 batches based on time zone so that everybody went out at 8 o'clock their time zone.
Right, because that's,
you know what I mean?
I have a couple of clients that are all, it has to go out on this day of the week. It has to go out but I don't think in their mind they're thinking that, well, on the East Coast it's not landing, just like Ozzy said, it's not landing in their mailbox at 7 a.m. or it's not landing in their mailbox at 11 a.m. It's just shooting from your email box at that time.
Right.
So
see, here's that thing.
Help those people. You just have to send it in batches.
Well, it would help those people. Sure. I mean, I said to Carlos today that I didn't intend it to be a replacement for. Hey, hang on one second. But hey, Carlos, look at this list. I mean, I still like our idea better, by the way, but they do have these, like, look, East Australian, Melbourne. Anyway, this is too hard for me. I don't like all these. But anyway, I said, well, we wouldn't want our thing to be necessarily a replacement for broadcasts, but in effect you could, because if I have in my contacts, if I have time zone specified, and remember, if I don't, our timer is going to assume Eastern time, because it does have to assume something, right? So if I said, all right, well, here's Nessa, and Nessa's Mountain time, and and then I run the delay timer. I send everybody through based on this delay timer. But with their time zone merged in, then the PSTs are going to go at 8 PST, the MSTs are going to go at 8 MST, CT, ET, etc. So in essence, what does end up happening is it would be like a broadcast, only you wouldn't have to send it in batches because all these time zones were merged in, and if there was no time zone, it would just send Eastern time. And if they had 30,000 contacts, they'd probably kill our server. But other than that one small little problem,
well, that's the internet marketer's dream then.
Well, it's for us, it's probably the best you can get right now on Infusionsoft for sure, right? I mean, Carlos, are you there? I'm on target with this, right? I know he's working while he's listening.
Well, the reason I brought that up. Go ahead.
Carlos?
Go ahead, Carlos.
Yeah, sorry, Kim. I wasn't following along. I was talking to Justin.
Oh.
Sorry.
Okay, never mind. Go talk to Justin.
Okay.
See ya. Go ahead.
Kim, the reason I brought it up, that specific thing, other than the Facebook example, I've followed Perry Marshall for about 4 or 5 years now. The timing of emails is really important, and I agree that the only reason it's been done in 5 batches now in terms of even the broadcast is because they want to, for those people who really understand the timing of things, then they're breaking it up in batches, because really what they're wanting to achieve is to get there at a specific time. So that if they didn't have that in mind, then they would just broadcast according to Eastern time in one hit.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't be breaking it up into batches, and the reason they're breaking up into batches is because they want to deliver it at a specific time.
Yep. So if you did this doesn't belong there, obviously. So this is the that doesn't either. All right, but imagine this is actually, the send date or what have you. So you have, and I want it to hit at 11 o'clock in everybody's own time zone. This is all I would do. I would say schedule the call here. I'd put the date and the time, and I'd merge in their time zone. And then this probably wouldn't be there, no adjustment. And this is new. This allows you to cancel a call, cancel a scheduled event, because like somebody cancels your webinar or something, or drops out of your, they decided they don't want to quote on your work order, and you need to kill all of these scheduled delay timers. So this actually allows you to make a call and kill them. But nonetheless, even so, if we took this out and this out, so now this right here is going to send at 11. It's going to hold. So it's going to send, at 11 o'clock Eastern time for your Eastern timers, and then or people who have nothing here in time zone, and then it's going to hold the rest of them, and then the ones who are in Central are going to go an hour later, and then the ones in Mountain an hour later, and Pacific an hour later after that. So everyone would get their email at 11 o'clock their time zone. That's pretty cool.
To be against and Kim, that has to be against the contact record, correct?
No, it doesn't have to be. This could be, no. So I can do a lot of things here. So,
All right, I'll tell you the reason I'm asking.
Mm-hmm.
Correct me if I'm wrong. The way I'm looking at this, it's like that time zone has to be a field populated within a contact record, as I understand it. Is that the first thing? Is that correct?
No. Where would you want it to be populated?
Oh, so if, like, for instance, all the contacts that I've got in my database are all Australia. So ideally, I'd want it recorded, AU in one place.
Like this, then.
It's like a global sort of parameter.
Like that. That's it.
Yeah, like hard-coded. Yeah, there you go.
That's all you have to do.
And that way you don't. It doesn't have. It's not. Doesn't have to be populated in the contact records.
Yeah, if you only have a single time zone, then that's all you have to do.
Yeah. Okay.
Because that's hard coding it. But you know, for us, I think. But even you have multiple time zones, don't you?
Yeah, I know. That's right. Yeah. So okay. So the question I'm asking then is that time zone code. So when you're, let me put it another way. When you're importing contact records, do you also have to populate the time zone field within those contact records?
Well, you don't have to, but if you want it to be specific to their time zone, then I have to somehow figure out where you are, right, and record that somewhere. So I either have to ask you at some point on a form, what's your time zone? Or I have to use like Google's GeoIP service to capture that. Like it's pretty easy to, I can capture the time zone of your server, but like we know with Infusionsoft, that's not very good because, you know, Kirsten's in Scottsdale and the, you know, server's in the East Coast, so that's not going to be very good. I can look up your IP address and get probably closer, you know, and say, oh, your IP address is in this time zone and automatically populate it. But the most accurate way would be to say, in the same way I want to know what postal code, or if I have postal code, I could look it up.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, because most of our records, because they're actual legal addresses that we've got in the database, we could make that determination on zip codes, on the postcode. You
could absolutely run a lookup on the postal code and populate your database with a time zone. But somehow or another, you've got to get it in there in order to be able to convert it, you know, to their time zone, or you're at least going to just hard code it to your time zone, and that's at least closer than what they had. I mean, you know, at least they're within an hour or two, right?
That's right.
At least we're giving them Australian time instead of U.S. time.
Yeah. So okay, got it.
Okay, I quite like that. It's like a cool little toy. All right. Let's see. So but you weren't thinking about storing this outside of like in an opportunity record or something?
No.
Okay.
I was really asking the question just to determine whether we need to populate fields within records to get this functioning. Yeah. But that's from the point of view of sales and marketing. In terms of actually writing campaigns, that's a completely different story because we're saying 11 o'clock, you know, ETAU in terms of delivery. That's a bit of a different thing. Yeah, because we're not all our campaigns are marketing related. Like for instance, at the moment our work order and quote system in terms of delivery of those sort of reminder emails, because we didn't configure it too much with that in mind, you know, the whole, you know, when's it going to go sort of thing, is being sent at 10 o'clock at night. So that's not really the ideal time. It's like, you know, should probably, in my opinion, should go 8 o'clock in the morning. So when the people come in to start their work on the work orders and quotes, they start early, let's say 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. It'd be ideal if those, you know, are up the top of the list, the most recent ones, so that they can, you know, our reminders get looked at first. So the deliverability in terms of getting your stuff done is really important when it goes into people's inbox. So sending something at midday, you'll get a different outcome to when it goes first thing in the morning or last thing of the day. If you send it during the day, it'll get mixed in with everything else that comes through during the day.
Right.
Anyway, so that's...
Yeah.
Bit of
Okay.
feedback there. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's then pretty much all I had to show you guys was just the thing that's missing. This does work, except that we didn't realize that duplicate time zone issue, and so right now it only resolves to U.S. time zones. But so we're going to come up with this code system, which I like this. This is good, ETAU or NZ or whatever. And then as soon as we fix that, then this will be working and we'll push out a new version to you. So
Right.
you can.
And what we're doing on our side to get the whole, we're I think only at maybe 24 hours away from getting our new environment set up with the latest version, or version 5.3 of PHP.
Yay! Okay.
Yeah, so that's, hopefully it's today, but it may or may not be. So just let Monica know that. I've been emailing her. She's now starting to ask me questions about where she's up to, and I've given her that feedback.
Mm-hmm.
The thing I got Chetan to do this week, actually just yesterday, I think, we've created a campaign. I'll call it a library. So we went through all your Pocket Developer documentation, and we created a campaign with the examples that you've got on the website.
Mm-hmm.
So so that when we actually go to use the HTTP post like you've got up here, what we want to do is, as we use different variables for different purposes, we want to put the template, if you like, in there in the library.
Mm-hmm.
So we've gone through and said, campaign, Pocket Developer, we'll do this one, schedule call, and here's an example of what you can do, and we'll just put like so we've gone through the website and done the basic ones that are already there as the example. So I suppose what I'm asking is that it would other than the examples and the millions of different variables that you can use, if you had things that you've used for other customers in real life examples of how you've used it, like as in we used, here's an example of a HTTP post that we use for this purpose to do this thing. That what we would love to take advantage of that and put it in the library. So when we're thinking about doing things, one is we know what's possible, because sometimes with these plugins, the issue is that you've got so much flexibility. Sometimes you don't know what's possible unless it's sort of like placed in front of you. You go, oh right. They used it for this purpose, and it gets your creative juices going by seeing what other people are actually doing with it. So if at some point over the next couple of weeks you were able to sort of even to do a screenshot of the different types of ways of any of the plugins work in real life, that would be really, really helpful.
So let me ask you a question.
And
I think, and I'm just going to say, I'm not sure you're unbiased enough to answer the question, but I'll ask anyway.
Okay.
So, so the idea is we're creating this. It's called the idea book, okay? And that is the idea, is to be able to document all the different ways like that you can use these things, right? But I'll tell you what the problem is. But here's the problem. So I have a list of about 15 of these that need to be written so far, and I could come up with more, but I just stop at some point because I like the idea of even getting these done is, but I mean this. Here's the question I want to ask. Go away. You go. Hang on. Go away. So like this is what this is how I think it should really be written, which is that somebody could not only say, here's the scenario, right? Your product or service includes support for 6 months after purchase. You want to record the support expiration date for each product purchased and send the customer emails to get them to renew the support agreement prior to expiration. I mean, that was a real thing, right? The challenge is, how do you put a date 6 months from purchase in a custom date field? How do you format that date so it looks nice in emails? And what if they buy more than one product? What if they buy 20? How do you keep from using up all your custom fields? Here's the solution. Use that plugin to add the term of your agreement to the date of purchase, put it in a custom field, blah, blah, blah. Actually, this should say put it in a custom field in the order so you can merge it in. And then I explain how to set it up. Right? But you know how long one of these takes to write? It's forever. So here's my question. Would you rather, and do you think a customer would be turned off if I just wrote like this much of it and threw a post up there? And would they go like, oh, this is crap? You know, is it better to get a bunch of them up now with just this much in a post? Or should I take the time to do them right? What do you think?
Okay. Depends. Depends. Okay. Depends on the type of user that's looking at the material. All right. Okay. So if it's someone that's really technically minded, I think our team probably doesn't need to have all that, what you've got on your website. We could probably get away with seeing the variables and like a short description of what it's doing, like in a lot less detail than what you've got on the website. However, for the less technical people that are using the tool set, so it's more like a system administrator type person without necessarily a technical background that uses the tools, then that sort of detail would be important.
And not only that, what if it's somebody who's never seen these plugins? I was told the other day, somebody said they had never even seen an HTTP post snippet, and their exact words were, I have never opened the process tab in a sequence.
Okay.
She said, I've never, which means she uses timers and emails and has never opened, those were her words, the process tab. She had no idea how this worked.
Okay.
So if that person is just searching, like, I need to do something, well, frankly, that person's probably not going to be able to do this anyway, right? But they might, that's the dilemma too, isn't it? Like, oh, I need to know how to do this. I don't even know if it's possible. I'm just searching to find out, can it be done? I find this, but I don't know how these plugins work.
Yeah, I don't think that they're your type of customers, Kim.
Yeah, that's a good point, huh?
Like it's like I'm not a programmer, but I think I'm technical enough, and I really got to concentrate on these things to understand what they're doing. And all I need is a short description of saying, oh, this line does that and this line does that, and then I can sort of get it. And we have opened up HTTP posts about 12 months ago with the use of SMS. That's how we got exposed to it. About 12 months ago it was. I couldn't see anyone with less skills than we've got actually getting their head around it just to use it for one purpose, let alone the many different purposes that you've got, all the variables. So if you really want to take advantage of the plugin, you're going to understand all the variables as well. So you're never going to be able to document all the variables to be, because that example that you give is just one specific example.
Right.
Well, what about all the other variables? You could be writing documentation on doing longhand descriptions for every single variable. That's just not going to be worth it for you. The scenario is good. Pick up if you're going to write it in that in that format, you'd pick the biggest bang for your buck use of the plugins and document the hell out of that.
Yep.
But I wouldn't be doing it for the non-technical people, because the people that buy your plugins are not non-technical people. They're the people who are really, really advanced and want to take the functionality beyond the capabilities of Infusionsoft. Because what I see in terms of like the negatives, Infusionsoft should do all this stuff. We'll wait till Infusionsoft gets it done. And God, if you can reduce your workload now, why are you going to wait 2 or 3 years before Infusionsoft gets it done?
Here's the funny
Goodness
thing.
gracious.
And I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm going to. Well, no, I shouldn't. Well, now I've opened the cat. Right now, I put the cat out of the bag. They're buying these. They're buying all of these for their teams.
Yeah, of course they would.
Yeah, because they can't possibly get it done themselves.
Yeah, of course. That's exactly my point. Yeah.
Yeah. Their teams were like, oh my God! I told you, they stood up and cheered, right? And they're like, we have to have these, and so their Infusionsoft is putting together a deal to buy them for their coaches and their teams. Because
it reduces the workload. So when you asked me for a testimonial,
yeah,
my focus was on how more quickly I could write campaigns by use of was the big sell. And I even sent you an email, if you recall, about how to pitch them from not a technology point of view.
Right.
It's all about writing the campaigns. That's the biggest benefit, and doing things that don't come native with Infusionsoft, i.e. being able to do more. That's the two reasons I committed to it for myself. Yep.
Yeah, and by the way, I haven't ignored your thing. As you can see, I just don't freaking have time to.
No, I think that's all our problem,
Oh my God, I can't even. I'm like writing as fast as I can. I'm pedaling as fast as I can. Okay. All right. Well, this has been immensely helpful for me. I hope it's been helpful for you. Chetan had a question, though. So, but I need more detail, Chetan, about wants me to explain more on any text that I showed yesterday. Maybe he's talking to you, Ozzy, and that can help Ozzy sing about our SMS facilities. What? More detail, please.
Look. Is he able to get on voice?
He could.
Yeah.
Chetan, are you there? Maybe we can't hear him.
What does he say in his chat thing?
Okay, this is what it says, word for word.
Mm-hmm.
First one says, wait. Oh, here. Says, okay, now, all right. Can you explain more on any text that I show yesterday and that can help, as Ozzy saying about our SMS facilities?
No, I don't know what he's talking about.
Me either. Chetan, can you tell us more?
Chetan, can explain more, Chetan. Be more specific. If you can't get onto voice, just be more specific in your chat thing.
I show on your documents.
I think he's referring to the documentation that you've got on the website. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right. So, Chetan, explain a bit more about that in terms of the any text documentation that's on the website. What specific question do you have?
So let me find any text. Can we replace that with our SMS facilities?
Okay. maybe if I can think of what he's trying to say. Okay, so at the moment, in the past we've used SMS Global to post SMS messages, and we also use Mobit more recently. So I think what he's saying is, can we use the AnyText facilities in terms of what we can deliver to SMSs? So probably I think what he's asking is, can we pass variables to SMS messages?
Well, I guess the question is, oh, I see what you're saying. Yes, but not. Yes, but no. You would ours does, but not the ones that you use, because they aren't built that way. But so if you look at, so we have two here. One is TelAPI and one is Twilio, and so we'll just use Twilio for an example. So with Twilio, it's the same thing. So these are texts, and you could in fact buy Australian numbers, and you can also in the post merge in whatever you want using our advanced using our merge fields. So and that now, but I'm not sure that that's not any different than what you can do right now today, is it? Does that help you do something you can't do right now?
Chetan, can you give the specific example that you were thinking about in terms of what information you want to pass to the text message that you're thinking about?
Okay, well, AnyText Anywhere. Well, yeah, I mean, AnyText Anywhere can write to any field, right? So it can write, but in terms of AnyText Anywhere, documents you have. Yeah, I'm just not quite following.
Well, what we'll do is we'll take this, Chetan, we'll take this offline, right? You, after the call, give me a call. Tell me what you're trying to ask, and then what I'll do is I'll send Kim an email later on with the specific scenario that you're asking about. Okay?
Oh, well, okay, wait a minute. Let me see if this is maybe where you're going. Now, maybe totally off, but I'll see anyway. So this is the AnyText. No, it's not. This is Any Opportunity. So AnyText, all of them actually have the ability to use something called a request, which is basically like chaining. So, for example, what you can do here, if it's in here, request. So here's your phone number. Hang on. It's in here. Pro tips. Yeah. So what a request does, is this what you're talking about, Chetan? I mean, so what a request does is it allows you to take information from one plugin and pass it to the next one. So in this case, we're taking information from AnyText, and we're actually passing it here. Oh, this is probably what he is talking about. We're passing it to Twilio, to our Twilio SMS plugin, so that you can get, in this case, like opportunity title, whatever, going into being sent to a text message. And I think the point of doing it this way would be so that, number one, you could get these merge fields that are from different record types. But it is also, so like here's the example right here. So where opportunity title says best opportunity ever. So in other words, you're filtering. You're not sending it to everybody. You're only doing it where this, and then result. It's going to send reminder. Best opportunity ever is due today. Is sent to Twilio and merged into the message when chaining, to Pocket Developer. So anyway, that's what he's talking about. I think, right?
I think so. Yeah.
And so the answer is you can't do it with Mob. He says kind of. Anyway, you can't do it with Mobit. You can't. All right. Well, then I'm not a quick guessing and let you guys figure it out and then send me a question and I'll answer it.
No worries.
Okay. So anything else
Kim,
before you?
Yeah, because you hijacked my question actually.
Oh.
And now you're right. I gave you the answer to your question, but you didn't give me the answer to mine. So, if without going through that all that documentation that you've got there, like that big scenario one, and you've got just basically a screen dump with some arrows with a short description of how you've utilized some of the plugins in real life, from a scenario point of view, but not that you're having to go through and document the whole thing, just like a one-paragraph description of what it does. So that we can add to our library and take advantage of what you guys have already done.
Yes.
That was my question. Yeah.
Got it.
I mean, your question was useful, but it takes it to another level.
Yep.
But it would help us in being able to be creative and think through. Say, okay, we got it. Okay, this is here's 2 or 3 examples of how it's being used in real life, and it'll just get our creative juices going by seeing that.
Yeah. So, I'll talk to Monica about that because Monica is the one who has the tendency to build those. She's the one doing them in real life. So, and then I'm the one answering mostly. Well, Carlos too, actually. Carlos and I answer questions from, people. Can I do this? How do I do that? And whereas Monica's actually building them in customer campaigns. So, we'd need to find some discipline about, which would be good for us too, because each one of those could become an idea book, right?
Oh, well, it'd be the start of it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
You'd have to. Yeah.
So what we should do is just create a discipline around, taking snapshots of those and at least annotating them for you, and then we can use them. I will make myself a note, and we will definitely try to do that. If you're not getting any, then you should ask us.
All right, so I'll remind you in a couple of weeks' time or something, yeah?
Yeah, because we're definitely building them, for sure. Okay.
Yeah, and just let Monica know, for our purposes, it might just be a paragraph of, plain English description of what it's doing. And we'll work out all the variables, and all that, what they mean, because, that's pretty easy to decipher. You say, J means this and that means that, and, we can sort of work it out once we understand what it's trying to do.
Got it. I'm just going to very quickly make myself a note right here.
And I'll leave you with the Barack Obama's sort of thing that I like when I ask these questions. It's always, yes, we can.
Say that? Wait, what?
You know Barack Obama, right? When he came to power the first time.
Yes.
It's yes, we can.
Yes.
He pitched. That's how he became president of the U.S. on those 3 words.
He did.
So
you are absolutely
yes,
right.
we can.
Actually, it's funny you say that. So that's our new tagline. In fact, I haven't seen my new logo yet, but it should have been here today. And it says our new.
That was good.
Kirsten.
Very good.
Our new logo is you can.
You can.
So not you can no code required.
Is that right?
So yep. You
Oh, I
can no
love it.
code
I
required.
love it.
So
Yeah.
very good. Yeah, that's actually very good. I wasn't clear. I'm like, wait, what is he saying? Yeah, you're right.
Well,
Barack
that's all
Obama
right.
did.
Cool.
That's funny.
All right. All good?
This was good.
Okay.
All right. We'll meet on
Signing off.
Monday next week. Ozzy, you want to go back to our regular time?
Yeah. If there's any problem
Okay.
with it, I'll let you know. Yep. Thanks.
Okay, very good. Talk to you later. Bye.